Let's now settle for the details. Now, the decision to extend the IMF program by one more year could come with some cost to government. But what are some of the additional measures that government needs to implement before it concludes this program, possibly in April 2019? There is more in this Business Desk report.
According to the document, government needs to send to Parliament regulations for the implementation of the Public Financial Management Act by November this year. Government is also expected to strengthen control on net hiring and the wage bill while interfacing payroll of all the public tertiary institutions and the Ghana Police Service by the end of the year. All these were structural benchmarks that were missed last year and must be implemented this year. Some institutions like DVLA and the Free Zones Board should also be moved onto the Give Miss program by end of the year. Government is also required to publish budgets for statutory funds, including expenditure, all aimed at increasing fiscal transparency. Another requirement that may not go down well with managers of the economy is submitting to Parliament legal amendments to the Bank of Ghana Act to help the elimination of central banks' financing of government, as well as the removal of voting rights of the Ministry of Finance members on the board of BOG, members of Parliament, if any, and civil society groups on the board, as well as MPC, and also removing of provisions allowing the Bank of Ghana to provide guarantees for loans granted by foreign institutions to government institutions and agencies. Another interesting development that might not go down well with managers of the economy is the decision that government should not step in to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana in the event when it suffers some losses.
So there was a wrap of some issues that one would say that could be interesting as we go on during the day. But we caught up with Senior Minister Yao Osafo-Mafo. Now, he confirmed that the program actually be extended by 1 year, but he says it's a technical extension. Let's watch him.
We have to think outside the box. That's the first point I want to make. And what do you really want the money for? You want the money for development. You can borrow. It's a direct access to funds. You can also barter trade some products for development, as long as you've developed the relevant negotiating skills. For instance, if we decide to trade in some of our bauxite, which is worth over $460 billion US, and we trade, say, 5, 6, 7 billion to access 460 billion. What is wrong with it? This is what we describe as leveraging the resources to develop. Otherwise, if because of our debt to GDP ratio, which is already 70%, we can't borrow. So it means we will sit, we have the youth unemployed, we have the resources in the ground. What do we do? I think we all have to think outside the box and find a way of creating employment for the youth. And we should do so by developing our own resources. We have iron ore, we have bauxite, we have manganese, we have all these things there. They are not there for nothing. If nobody is going to lend to you to develop because of certain ratios, then find a very innovative way of assessing development. That was my message.
Also, finally, the IMF program we understand is going to be extended. One would see that there are some additional benchmarks that we are supposed to implement looking at this period. How prepared are we for these benchmarks that we understand some could be quite tough?
I'm not aware of any additional benchmarks. On the other hand, we ourselves have come out with our benchmarks. We are saying that we are going to be, in terms of deficit, between 3.5 and 5% over the period till 2018. We are saying that we are going to ensure a growth of in the neighborhood of 8%. So these benchmarks we are putting on ourselves. Nobody, as far as I'm concerned, there is no additional benchmarks on anybody.
How prepared are you to fast track these benchmarks they're supposed to implement within this period?
But that extension itself is quite interesting. Look, we are doing a budget in November. This budget we are doing in November must necessarily have the input of IMF. Am I right? Yeah. Because we are under the program, let's say, till April. So we are preparing a budget in November this year. is going to be, call it the IMF Ghana budget, composite budget. A budget has a cycle of 12 months. It really has from January to December. So de facto, that budget we are going to prepare in November is not going to end. It's going to be for up to December 2018, and it already has an IMF input. So really, the extension is academic.
You call it the technical extension?
Yes, the technical extension. That's the way I see it.
Already, some of the market players are describing it as a good omen, and therefore, you will still see that significant inflow of capital and all the rest. For you, what do you make of these?
And in our later bulletins, we'll be bringing you more on this interview with the Senior Minister, Yao Osafo Mafo. Let's move from the IMF program and do something related to the insurance industry, which should concern you if you hold any policies with any of these insurance firms. Now, the economists will say all other things being equal, for the insurance companies could be shut down before the close of this year. Now, we understand that it has to do with more of their inability to raise the required capital to be in this business. Let's get more on this in the following Business Text report.
One of the firms is part of some companies that were struggling to meet the minimum capital requirement of 15 million Ghana cedis. However, Joy Business is learning that this insurance company has made some progress in upping its capital, but has till end of September to fully meet the old capital levels or lose its license to operate. The other three are said to be firms that have seen some marginal dip in liquidity or capital because they are yet to witness some improvement in earnings after starting business recently. These firms now need to improve their capital position before the end of this year or lose their license by December. The move is seen by some industry players as an attempt by the regulator to ensure that players comply with the insurance laws. So the banking sector had its share, what some are describing as regulatory toughness, and the Ghana Stock Exchange followed. Well, maybe the insurance sector could be next.
So we tried to get the view of the new Insurance Commissioner, Justice Ofori, on what he makes of these developments and what is he going to do about it when it's time to crack the whip. Let's watch him.
The Commission would actually enforce the rules to the teeth. Sometimes when you apply the rules, people don't like it, but it's actually for their own good. The Commission's responsibility is not only to the shareholders, but also to the ordinary people on the street, the insurers and the innocent third parties. So we owe it upon ourselves to make sure that companies that operate in the system are really solvent enough to handle, to pay claims that will come their way.
Let's come back to the issue about capitalization as well, and not to mention unions, but again, how are we going to deal with that issue that, yes, they've been given certain timelines and all the rest, and if all these things have kept quite a long time, and if all the avenues fail, I should say that, are you willing to crack the whip?
Yeah, I believe we have to actually enforce the rules, because that is the only way insurance companies in Ghana can grow. The industry always complains about foreign companies coming into the country. They are scared if foreign companies come into the country, they'll probably take their jobs. But I believe that if they are well capitalized, or if they think of mergers and acquisitions, we can develop locally indigenous insurance companies that are strong to compete with other foreign insurance companies. So I am of the view that a strong solvency requirement is always a priority for our own.
Are you willing? I mean, I know you appreciate it's the critical, how critical it is, and the fact that you're willing to crack the whip, and as a regulator, that's what you want to do. But sometimes the appeals and all the rest, and we've seen in all the sectors, the banking sector, some would say it took quite a long time when we all knew the banks in question that were troubled.
for the regulator to finally crack the whip, and whatever appeals and the chiefs who will come to you, and even all the family members, and even the political pressure. And that's why in another interview we were asking your board chair about the support to you. You would go ahead and do when all the avenues to try and help these insurance firms.
Yeah, we will try because we don't want any company to close down, but we'll do whatever we can to actually help them stand on their feet. And doing so means that we also have to be disciplined, because if you don't crack the whip, sometimes you don't get good results.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's a need? I mean, there have been several proposals, and even for the bank, and I talk about other things that are happening. We also even understand for the security sector as well, there are even plans to, again, you ask yourself whether behind the scenes there's some level of consultation, but it's cutting across, and the banking sector is doing it. The governor is saying that possibly, and the economists will say all other things being equal, in the first week of September, they might announce new capital levels. Some are saying that it could be as much as 520 million Ghana cedis for these commercial banks. Would you also support any similar move in the insurance industry?
I would actually support such a move. That we are not as big as the banks, but we still need to increase our limits to some extent. That is the only way we can grow. We cannot sit down and always be the smallest in the world. Mm-hmm. Normally when you travel and you see other companies from other African countries and you see their strength, financial strength, it tells you we are joking. Mm-hmm.
And you believe that it is critical to do that?
It is critical. That is how you get other businesses from other countries, especially with the reinsurers. Mm-hmm. For others to bring their businesses to you, they need to see your strength, financial strength, and you don't have that strength.
And that what Justice Ofori here is, the new insurance commissioner. Well, it's a very interesting development, and it's good to get some analysis on this particular issue. Edgar Redu is an insurance consultant. And Edgar, I mean, what do you make of these developments in the insurance industry? And some will say that it's quite interesting. The banking sector is having its share, the security sector is having its share, and now the spotlight is on the insurance sector.
Well, let me say good afternoon to our viewers, and I must express that I'm a little bit confused when I hear the commission or the commissioner make mention of what they mean by minimum capital. I think there's something that has gone wrong somewhere there, because the minimum capital is stated by the Act, and then it gives the commission that sort of leverage, as it were, to say that due to the nature of the businesses you are underwriting, the capacity you are carrying on, so there's a need for you to up your capital.
More of risk-based, rather.
You see, so the 15 million is not the minimum. The minimum is the equivalent of 1 million US. So if a company has that minimum, you cannot say you are going to close him down, right? What you are saying is that, look, I think you are underwriting businesses beyond a certain threshold. And for the mere fact that you're underwriting businesses beyond that threshold, there's a need for you to up your capital. If you are not able to up your capital, all the commission needs to do, two things. Adam now begins to streamline the businesses that you're going to do, or give you a certain retention level, and make sure you don't go beyond.
But let me put it on record, is that what we understand from the commission, and not that would be a last resort, as in if they have to step in and close these insurance firms down. But yes, of course, they're giving them a period to reorganize things, but even closing them down would be a last resort. And that's what we have picked up from the commission.
Yes.
But the new commissioner was talking about the fact that, yes, it's necessary to sanitize the industry.
No problem. And I'm saying this, that whatever the commission says or the commissioner says, fine, but the commissioner has not got that right. The minimum is equivalent of $1 million or an amount that the commission says you should increase it based on what you are underwriting. The minimum requirement is $1 million, so you've got it, you are in business. All that we're saying is you want the companies to grow, so you're underwriting certain businesses. So prove your strength to the insuring public that you can underwrite those businesses. It's a good sign for you when you are able to have more capital. Yeah. It means you have a backbone. So now you can begin to pick on larger risk. rigs that probably you would have done a lot of reinsurances on, now you are able to retain a certain portion. And gradually, you are becoming big. That is fine.
Edgar, do you think that because of this whole arrangement where you have reinsurance, this whole idea about upping capital, it's not really that relevant?
No. That's the point I'm making is this, that you cannot say that because you've asked a certain capital to be met and you have not met the capital, because first of all, you must understand there's a basis for which you ask for an increase in the capital.
Yeah, but that's the old capital actually they haven't met for these insurance companies.
What? No. The law says that the minimum requirement everyone should have is the equivalent of $1 million. That is for the insurance industry. And for the reinsurers, 2.5 million US. Okay? The equivalent in cedis. That is the minimum. But the commission is saying this. We are beginning to see that you guys are underwriting a certain type of risk, large volumes, huge figures. So in order for the confidence levels to be there and also to make sure that you are properly, protected, raise your capital such that the one bringing the business gets the confidence in doing business with you. Now, what it simply means is that if someone has not been in the position to raise his capital, you, the commission, now must make sure that such an industry does not write risk that are beyond what the capacity
So
can be.
if I get from you, sorry to cut in, that rather let's have more prudent regulation to these firms as in monitor the operations rather than sanctioning them, withdrawing their license because they haven't met the capital.
Yeah, because the law does not give you that power.
That means the commission hasn't got that power to withdraw the license of these companies.
The law is clear. The act is clear. The basis for which you withdraw a license or firm as you are giving somebody else, even when your minimum falls, your minimum capital, it falls below a certain point.
Yeah, right? For these three insurance companies that we understand.
Listen carefully.
Yeah.
The minimum capital is $1 million. It's equivalent in Ghana cedis. If the commission says, I am going to increase to a certain level, that does not become the minimum capital. Now, the 15 million that the commission says is increasing, it is not the minimum capital. Act, whatever, the act says is clear under section 69. It's very clear, and you see it in the second schedule. The basis for which is increasing it is because, look, now you are picking up bigger businesses. So prove that you are in a position to handle those bigger businesses. So it is good for yourself when you have a solid backbone, right? So people begin to position themselves that, okay, everybody, 15 million. So it tells you that, yes, you are solid. But that does not give you the license to say that somebody has not made a minimum.
Finally, Edgar, and as I wrap up with you, for you, there are some who have said, and educate me here, that even for an insurance company, looking at the risk that they're exposed to, the capital should even be increased more than what we are seeing in the banking sector.
Oh, well, basically, you see, insurance is all about the pooling, the risk sharing, the seeding, and all that kind of thing. So you may have so many people participating in this kind of businesses. You, the insurer, these things are, should I say, backroom activities. From the insurer, you go to the reinsurer. That is now the insurer will now go to the reinsurer. The reinsurer will go to the retrocessionary, and there could be about 100 of them spreading the same risk. So it does not necessarily mean that you must have about some $10 billion inside or something, because the participants, those who participate in the risk, are quite a lot, depending on the volume, and everybody is taking it according to his capacity.
Edgar, the conversation will still go on. I'll be doing some more discussions on this on Business Live as well, as we get more analysis on this issue with Edgar. So we'll be getting onto the ground, and it is believed that the paperless transaction, or the fact that when you clear your goods at the port, you might require little documentation to do that, what they call paperless transaction. Let's get live onto the ground and get some update from our colleague Ebenezer Sabute, who is at the Tema port, to tell us what is actually happening. Ebenezer, if you can hear me, can you help me out? Is it as smooth for everyone who is doing business at the port? Because today is the official day, because it started on Friday and it was a holiday.
It hasn't been easy for us here at the Tema port because users of the port, clearing agents, and some freight forwarders who are supposed to go through the system to clear their port are not having, the system easily at all. We all knew that today we are supposed to have the paperless system beginning at the Tema port. Yes, it has begun on Saturday, according to the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority. But some clearing agents came here in anticipation that
some break in transmission, but we'll be trying to link up again with my colleague Ebenezer Sabote, who is telling us that, well, it's not all that smooth for those who are clearing their goods at the Tema Port. And we'll be trying to link up with him again to give us more details as in what is happening at the port with respect to this whole paperless transaction that is actually going on. And we'll be getting a quick wrap again of the interview that we had earlier with the Insurance Commissioner, if I get it right.
Tell us what is happening.
Oh, it is smooth. It is smooth, you see, but you should expect some of these, what you are saying. You know, this being the first day that most of them will start the process with the new system. Some have actually come here again to go through the old process. And we are here, the customer service center is here, so we are here explaining to them that once it's a fresh transaction, they will not be allowed to go through the old process. They have to go back and then make the request through the GCNet system so that we can automatically raise the invoice for them to pay. Some of them here are those who have started the process already in the old system. So they are here, and we are allowing such people to go through and complete the process in the old system, because as it is, it means that we don't have records on these ones they have done already in the new flow. So we are just managing the situation. Obviously, you have some of them who think that, oh, today being the first day, maybe we are still organizing ourselves, so they should try and come and process it through the old system. But I believe it's going to be fine. Once we keep on interacting with them and then we direct them and encourage them to do the right thing, I'm sure they will conform.
Has the information gone down with them earlier on, since you know that by all means they will not be allowed to use this process since they've started the earlier process, the old process? Has there been any form of information, or even text message or email to them, so that they could be able to know that today they are starting a new process, so that they can abandon the old system rather than coming here and being told to go back again? Is there a way you guys are handling it?
Yes, we
And Esther Donko is actually with the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, speaking to my colleague Ebenezer Sabote with those details there on how all this whole process is actually panning out at the Tema Port. Now let's move on and do some other stories. Now, the E-Crime Bureau has announced the appointment of Mr. Alex Opona as his new principal consultant, that is for that Ghana leading cybersecurity and digital forensic consultant firm. His appointment took effect from August 1. Now, Mr. Opon is an information security and forensic expert with almost 20 years of active experience, having consulted for major firms both in Europe and Africa. He has also managed various forensic information security and regulatory compliance projects for clients in institutions. Now, prior to him joining the E-Crime Bureau, Mr. Opon was the forensic lead at KPMG in Ghana. He's also served as a lead information systems security consultant on the Ghana Rural Bank's computerization and the interconnectivity project, among other key roles in the UK. And all too soon, the curtain has to be dropped down. Paperless, IMF, and also the insurance sector. But it looks like you might be safe. Things might not be that bad. My name is George. We are Fed. Have a good afternoon.